Thank you for the questions. I am not an educator, but I am happy to teach, especially those who take the time and want to learn. You asked two very specific questions in your video. First, do some gay men choose to become transgender women because it's somehow safer than living openly as gay men? And then, the question of trans women in sports. Do they have an unfair advantage? Now, both points deserve serious, clear-eyed discussion. So let's unpack the first part. Are gay men transitioning because it's easier than being gay? No. That's a misunderstanding of what it means to be transgender. Transgender people don't become women or men because it's easier. In fact, they don't become women or men at all. They've always been trans men or trans women. Sometimes it takes them longer to realize it, but once they do, they choose to live their lives authentically. And in some cases, not all, they choose to undergo procedures to help their exterior align with who they've always been on the inside. Transitioning isn't a workaround for social safety. It's a deep internal truth. Being trans is not a shortcut out of homophobia. It's a path into another kind of visibility that often comes with even more hostility, scrutiny, and violence. Some people will explore with gender fluidity, where they dance back and forth on the gender spectrum. Others will settle comfortably as no gender at all. But both of those are still trans identities because they're transitioning out of the gender binary. And for a lot of queer people, that's just part of the journey of self-discovery. But it's not the same as choosing to be trans for strategic reasons. And honestly, it's very dismissive and reductive to suggest that trans people become trans because they can't cut it as gays and lesbians. Because transgender people can still be gay or lesbian or bisexual or asexual, all of the sexuals. Because there's a difference between gender identity and sexuality. Sexuality is who you go to bed with. Gender identity is who you go to bed as. Now onto sports and the question of fairness. This is the debate that makes headlines, and it's not unreasonable to ask whether transgender women, especially those who transitioned after puberty, might have an unfair advantage when it comes to athletics. But if you're referring to muscle mass or testosterone, then I hate to break it to you, but plenty of cisgender women have natural increased levels of both. And it could easily be argued that they are at an unfair advantage compared to the other women in their sport. We shouldn't ignore science or use it selectively. And the science proves that professional sports already deal with genetic and physical disparities all the time. Height in basketball, wingspan in swimming, or fast twitch muscle genetics in sprinting. So while it isn't unreasonable to ask the question if trans women have an unfair advantage, it is unreasonable to assume that they have a greater advantage than any other cis woman in their sport. Because muscle mass and testosterone already fluctuate from athlete to athlete, and the record shows that trans women can lose to cis women just as easily as the other way around. What matters is finding policy that balances inclusion and fairness without turning trans people into scapegoats or implying they're cheating the system. Some sports organizations are already working on nuanced guidelines, factoring in hormone levels and years in transition. So while we might need more data, the real challenge is having these types of conversations with honesty and not fear, which I respect you're attempting to do by asking these types of questions. All too often, this conversation is hijacked by transphobia and fiction, not fact. So thank you for asking the question, and more importantly, thank you for listening.